Conflict of interest can be, there's a broker who is on the board. This broker sells apartments in the building. There are some buildings who make it a rule just to not have to deal with it,
Yes.
that brokers can't be on the board. Other buildings allow them to be on the board and just recuse that person if an application comes through that they are a party to, or someone from their team is a party to.
Right.
A conflict of interest can also be, you have a project that's going on, one of the board members has a cousin that does that. Whatever, it is, painting or whatever the case is. Or I can just have my cousin, come in and do the work. That can be a conflict of interest. A few years ago, and don't quote me on the year, I want to say it might have been 2018 or 2019, we started being required to report any conflicts of interest on an annual basis. So some of you may have gotten this before, a sheet where you have to sign, and basically it's saying there were none or there were conflict of interest, and explaining what the conflicts were.
Sure.
Of course, if at all possible, you want to try to not put yourself in a position to have a conflict of interest. If for some reason there is one, you are required to report it annually, and something has to be sent out to all of the owners, unit owners or shareholders in your building, saying, yes, we had a conflict, here is what it was, or no, we had no conflicts at all. And I'll give it over to Leah to give us some attorney advice about that.
So conflicts of interest are one of those where I said your liability as a board member is almost entirely protected. Conflicts of interest are where that sort of gets a little dicey. It's extremely important that if you are an interested party, whether you're a broker overseeing a transaction or someone that might be in the construction business that has a company or a subcontractor that wants to bid out a job, that you are entirely removed from that discussion, from that meeting. This can also include things like a board member's apartment was damaged and you're making an insurance claim, and the board is discussing the payout and how they're going to arrange for that settlement with you. These are the types of things that you would need to divorce yourself from. And that's not to say that you don't need to participate in the entirety of that board meeting. You just have to leave for that particular topic. And usually if we know it's coming up, we'll sort of structure the meeting so that, we'll save that last bit till the end so you could be there for the majority of the meeting and then excuse yourself at the end so we can talk about that one topic. I don't think it's any sort of elephant in the room so much as, it's a conflict, so please leave. And typically everybody's pretty good about it. Conversations within the board are to remain within the board and not to be discussed outside of the meeting. So we try to, encourage that as much as possible and remind board members that what you do talk about is confidential, and particularly for these types of conflict cases. And from there, so long as that's happening, you're fine and everything is protected. In the event of someone that is not divorcing themselves from a conflict situation, there could be suggestions of impropriety, of self-dealing. If you're not reporting things on those forms, that's where these things can become problematic for you and your liability then becomes an issue. Those people that are serving on the board just to get that construction contract or to get that leg up on the transaction are obviously not working with the fiduciary duty under the best interests of the building, right? They're doing it more for themselves than they are the entity. And so that's where your liability comes into play, and your insurance coverage might not protect you. We'll talk about that a bit later.
And in addition to that, though, I want to say that the conflict doesn't only have to be, you know, a broker or a
course.
contractor where the board member has an interest or anything like that. A perfect example is I have a building where we have an ongoing leak. It's been going on for a long time. The party that's affected by this leak happens to be on the board. So when we start discussing that particular topic at the board meeting, I say to that specific board member, you know, I'm sorry, please don't be offended, but when we get to this part, you're going to have to excuse yourself because you are a party to this topic. And so you want to be very careful when you have that as well. And so it's not just, you know, that the person is a broker or anything like that. It could be that you have a board member that's a party to a specific topic. You know, they're making the complaint of noise, or there's a complaint against that board member. And so you don't want to include that person in the board discussion. You ask them to recuse themselves from that discussion.